So let's go ahead and hop into dispositions and find out what we're talking about when we go there. So these are the 5 dispositions that we're going to be talking about, but let me give you guys a little bit of backdrop of what a disposition is first. So first of all, our dispositions are more inborn than we kind of created or try to facilitate. It's what's hardwired into us. So each of us has a disposition, and they're all equally valuable. Now, as far as schools are concerned, there's some that are more appreciated than others. So that's why you may have some children having challenges in schools, because our school systems are not designed to cater to every disposition. And when I say cater, a lot of times people will say like, well, we shouldn't really be catering to anyone. Everyone needs to kind of get with the program. But here's the challenge with that. The school can't possibly monitor or account for the vastness of all of our gifts and our talents and who we are. So you may have a child who's going to school on a daily basis, and who they are is never going to be celebrated because it's just not conducive to the school setting. So I just want to empower you as a parent, as an advocate, to say, you know what, John, Sarah, I know that you may never be celebrated in this setting, but I need you to know that I see you and I understand who you are, so that you can give them opportunities to have atmospheres and situations where they can thrive, if that's not going to be facilitated in the school system. So once again, our dispositions are hardwired into us. It's what we show the world. It's how we show up. So all other aspects of power traits are going to be filtered through your child's disposition. So that's why this one we're going to spend a little bit more time on this one, because it's so key. Our dispositions determine how we work, how we communicate, how we learn, determines how our behavior. So all of this can help us to give our kids like hacks and strategies and tactics when all the other systems that they may be experiencing may not be aligned to give them the best chance at success. So I want you as a parent to have the tools that you need to say, you know what, I'm going to recognize you for who you are and give you the tools that you need to succeed. So many misunderstandings happen between parents and children and teachers and children, not because of defiance. A lot of times it's a dispositional issue. So remember what I shared with you guys about me conflicting with my children? It was like, I love being still. I can read, I can be in quiet, but those guys are movers and shakers, and they need that activity to be well. So now I can understand you're not just trying to disobey me, as were you're living out the truth of who you are. So now I can say, you know what, you need a dedicated space for that. Because I always tell people, this is not about everything being child-centered. This is about being child-considered. Just like we want to be honored for who we are, these little people need to be honored for who they are. And that's why we have a lot of adults, once again, who were never honored for who they were. And so now as adults, it's almost like they don't know fully what they're about or what they're interested in, because that was never celebrated in their youth. So I want us to change that narrative. If we don't accept our children for who they are, their dispositions, then they're never going to get the acknowledgement and the acceptance that they need. It's very difficult to learn when you don't feel that your presence matters or how you show up matters. So I just want to encourage us to recognize that our dispositions are not something that we can take on and off. It literally is how we're wired and what's in our seed. I'm going to give us a brief overview of the brief dispositions. And so you're probably going to locate yourself just based on my descriptions, okay? So you're spontaneous folks. Once again, this is not just children, this is adults as well. They are your movers, shakers. They're the ones who are the life of the party. They bring the fun, they bring laughter. In learning situations, they like things that are immediately relevant, that are fun and short and involves movement and competition. So you wonder why, you have maybe a certain group of students who may be in the principal's office a little bit more than others, because they are life animation personified. So when you're expected to sit in a classroom all day at a desk and be still and quiet, can you imagine what this particular person and this child is going through? Okay, what they contribute to the world. They bring fun, laughter, excitement, adventure, playfulness. I would hate to see what our world would be like if we did not have the spontaneous disposition represented. Next, we move to the organized disposition. These are your planners, your organizers, your schedules. They like to-do lists. They want to know, what is that we're doing here? I like to have a plan. I like to have order. I like clear expectations. I appreciate quiet and workbooks. I don't mind drills. So guess what? This disposition is the teacher's dream, because they follow the rules. They like the rules. They want to know the rules. So once again, this type is celebrated. So they're going to typically do pretty well in school because they're focused and they're thorough and they're diligent, So we need those folks too, because without the organized disposition, what would ever get done? Again, every disposition is valuable. We need them all. We move to curious. They like to discover, to find solutions. They need time to ask questions. These are the kids where you're just like, oh my gosh, why so many questions? Because they want to know the answer. They are curious. They are investigators. They need time to research. So when you give them a project and you let them go for it, and then all of a sudden, it's like 15 minutes are up and you're like, time to move on. This student is extremely disappointed because they have just gotten into the heart of their research and now they have to transition to something else. So they need time with their projects and to explore. These are the kids who will debate you. Well, let's put it this way. They will debate you if they feel like you are a worthy opponent. They're not going to debate you if they don't feel like you have answers. So they may come off as a little bit, we're not going to say that. I thought my daughter was just extremely challenging. When I found out that she was curious disposition, I'm not going to lie, I cried a little bit because I just recognized what the journey was going to be ahead of me. She doesn't just accept the answer at face value. We have to do the research and bear that thing out. So once again, they have that sense of discovery and wonderment and problem solving. So we need the problem solvers in the world, especially during the times that we're living in. And next we move to the supportive disposition. These are the ones who are all about interaction, having harmony. They care about fairness. They care about being sensitive to others' feelings. So if someone is having a difficult time or feeling a certain kind of way, like this is the child that can perceive that and will take some of that emotion on themselves at times. So they are very cooperative. They like to work in groups. So when you're dealing with assignments, like it's almost torture for them to have to be forced to work alone. So just something to keep in mind. So they create atmosphere, they bring harmony, and they bring teamwork. We need our supportive folks. And last but not least, we have our imaginative or the ones who bring wonder. They contribute ideas, have an extreme imagination. They need time for observation and creativity and to think quietly. They love to contribute new ideas. These are the ones who you may call their name and you're like, are you listening to me? They're not trying to ignore you. They just have such a rich fantasy life and imagination life and that they are lost in that world, So you may find them doodling and you wonder like, are they hearing anything that I'm saying? They are your artistic, your creative folks. They need the time to daydream. They are designers and beauty matters to them. Can you guys see how all of these dispositions kind of round out our human experience? We need them all. Now, we all have our strengths and we all have our challenge areas and we want to be able to grow because we still have to navigate systems in this world that we live in. But how much more easily would it be to navigate these systems if we were celebrated from the onset and acknowledged for who we truly were before we were asked to comply with everything else that the world is asking of us? So that is just a snapshot of our dispositions, our organized dispositions, our supportive dispositions. Those are typically the ones that are celebrated in school. So you can imagine what the curious, the spontaneous, and the imaginative kids feel like on a regular basis. And then we expect them to hit 18 and hit the world and just go be movers and shakers. That's a very difficult thing when you spent a lot of your formative years in an environment where who you were was not celebrated and you didn't feel very smart because who you were was not really able to be captured in the systemic school setting. So just something to think about as far as our disposition. So another thing too, we have our spontaneous kids, mover shakers. A lot of times they're often labeled as HD. And I'm not saying that some people don't deal with those things, but we have to be careful that we don't label things just based on not conforming to what we want and need it to be in a certain setting. Okay. Most of our world changers are these curious folks, these imaginative folks, like we need them all. So I just want to encourage us, please take the time to understand how your child is wired so you can honor the seed of who they are and they can flourish into their adulthood years.